insane history-making journey of All We Imagine is Light. Before we kick off, Payal, you want to introduce some members of your team who are here?
Yeah, thank you all for coming today. We also have here with us Zico, who is the producer of the movie, and also Ronobir, who is the cinematographer and producer. It's a unique combo.
Payal, I want to start with what the last 5 months have been like. I think it's been, about 5 months since the film made history at Cannes. I wanted to ask you, what has been the most pinch me, holy shit, I can't believe this is actually happening moment? Let me give you a couple of options, and then you can tell me. You have the 8-minute standing ovation at Cannes after the world premiere. You have winning the grand prize, being handed the award by Viola Davis. You have the 5-star review from Peter Bradshaw in The Guardian, amongst many others. You have making it to the Times 100 list with a curiously penned note by Ayushmann Khurrana. You have, obviously, today we are on the eve of the grand premiere of the film at Mami at the Mumbai Film Festival, and you're about to release it in India, UK, and the US. So, and that delightfully viral red carpet dancing moment, which I think we all love. So what has been the most pinch me moment amongst all of that, or is it something that I haven't even mentioned?
I mean, all of it was a lot and was very surreal. And it's a film that we took very many years to make, and so getting selected was already, we were pleasantly surprised and honored. But I think all of it leads to one thing that I am the most excited still about, is that the film will release in India and people will go and buy a ticket to watch my movie. That makes me really happy.
I think this is a good time for you guys to announce the India release date, if you want to do the honors.
Yeah, sure. Let's go. Hi guys. Good afternoon. I'm Rana Daggubati, usually not known for films like these. But All We Imagine is Light will have a large pan-Indian theatrical release on the 22nd of November. And so one is, it's a huge honor for us to be part of this film and bring it to all of you guys. And thank you, Payal.
No, thank you.
Such an awesome film that you've made, and partnering with us to get this film out.
No, Rana, I wanted to ask you about this wonderfully unlikely collaboration. You are someone who has in the past championed, various films. We talked about 777 Charlie, Gadi, there was Care of Kancharapalam. But, we were discussing this earlier, and I still feel a lot of those films still have a very mainstream syntax. They're still very crowd-pleasing films in a lot of ways. This is the first time that you backed and presented a true blue indie darling with Payal. So what drew you to it? What made you feel like you wanted to be part of this journey?
So see, even now, after 20 years in the movies, I still fail what is independent and what is mainstream. We always had a thought where cinema that had big song and dance was the mainstream cinema, and everything that had a unique story and emotion became independent, because it was always hard to release without big stars in it, without big other names attached. Right? And now I think India has gone to that phase. So like my career actually started with a film called Bommalata, which was an independent film that won national awards, but we couldn't get a theatrical release at that point. From then on, it was trying to find space for this. In India, unlike the rest of the world, there's no government grants or anything for filmmakers or art in that form. It's just always been the merit of the film and a few filmmakers that have really championed films out, right? So the few films that you mentioned earlier were really the start of many things that we did. All of them had a certain regional understanding. I mean, I come from Telugu cinema, so Care of Kancharapalam was the first film, which was, for us, an all-independent film, but the humor in that film made it slightly more mainstream.
It is such a lovely film. I will say that endlessly.
Thank you. But again, when I saw All We Imagine, right, to me, it was almost like watching a regular Malayalam film. To me, it was not independent in that sense, because Malayalam cinema has a storytelling or a narrative that it's used to in this style. And I just feel like with this, we're trying to break the format of how an independent film should be released in India, because it can't take the regular route of, here you go, you have a big pre-release, and then there's 30 days of promotion, and then the film is out. I think it needs a different cycle. So we started with the release in Kerala. We want to keep moving across different states. Tomorrow is the screening at Mami, and then they will follow a bunch of screenings across different states before we do a main theatre.
I do really want to ask you about what you said, the idea of a different approach to a film like this. But Payal, first I have to ask the same question to you. I know that you got various phone calls from various fancy people in in terms of distributing this film. So what was it about Rana that you felt that these were the right hands for the journey of this film?
I think they had a very well-planned distribution approach, which would kind of understand what the film could do in different regions and also in the Kerala film industry. So the kind of the understanding of that it's not a film that we can just release nationwide without a thought to the kind of film it is. I felt they were very sensitive to that, and I really respected that look at distribution, because distribution can be just putting some money into something and releasing it, but to really think about how to place the film correctly, I felt that they really had a great sensitivity to that.
Thank you.
I also have to ask you the question that I feel like you might be tired of answering at this point, which is just about the journey of the film and where it started. I've heard you talk about this in various different countries and film festivals around the world, which is a wonderful problem to have. But just talk us through where it started. I believe this film has been with you for 6 years. It's
Yeah.
something you were thinking about during your time at FTI.
Yeah, it took a long time. It was a film that when I was a student at FTI, I was making my final diploma project, and at that time I was in different hospital situations with 2 family members. And when you're a student filmmaker, you find everything very interesting. I think that's true of all filmmakers. We find life more interesting than cinema, and that is our privilege as filmmakers. So I was very keen to make a film, and I wanted to make a film about women who are in the working space. And a hospital provides a good kind of environment to have multiple issues that you can bring up. So I felt it would be the right space to make a film. But as I started researching more and the city came in a big way, that I realized that I wanted to make a much longer film. And it took many years then to write the script and do more research and raise funding for it. So that was the kind of starting point. And it's now finished after 5 years.
Finished is an understatement. It's now being celebrated. I think it was being released in is it over 50 countries. Is that right?
Yeah.
Hell of an achievement. Rana, I wanted to ask you. I feel like your average week as an actor, artist, producer, distributor, in terms of what you're watching, is not all that different to mine. It's a lot of mass moments and big BGM and entry sequences and thundering background score and swag. And I'm not looking down on those films. They can be immense fun. But I'm curious to know, as an audience, what do you feel you get when you step away from that and watch a film as meaningful and soulful as this one? Because it feels like it appeals to a very different part of our being.
See, one is what fascinated me always, forget being a filmmaker or just as a human, right, is India is so diverse in its culture, and very little of that has translated to film. And I just feel like anything that's slice of life that we're able to showcase a certain culture in India needs to be shown to the rest of the country, because we're extremely different, but we're still unique and still alike. Yeah. So I think that's what cinema like All We Imagine does really well, where you see the story of Malayali nurses in Bombay, in a city like Bombay, which is really for everyone. It's your city, but it's not. And I've been in this city almost like 15 years now, coming and going, but there's a certain love that I have for the city, but if something wrong happens, it spits me right out back. Yeah. So I think that's the beauty that this film has, and I think it really requires more filmmakers to make cinema like this and just find unique ways to release them, that's all.
In terms of Bombay, I read an interview where you said, it's the city that never settles, which I love. I'm stealing that line. And Payal, I have to ask you about
nice
your relationship with the city. I was telling you earlier, this truly is one of the most achingly beautiful Mumbai movies I've ever seen, and I'm not at all just saying that. Mild spoiler alert, your film opens with these little sort of voiceover vignettes of everyday Mumbaikars talking about their relationship with the city. And I could have watched just 2 hours of that.
Yeah,
I
could make 2 hours of that.
I literally fell in love with the movie before I met a single main character or got a sense of plot. So, what is it about this city that really drew you in as a storyteller? Because the way you capture the feeling of Bombay, in such a romantic but also like achingly tragic way.
Yeah.
And you've also said that the next film you may be working on is also based on the history of the city. So, what is it about the city that keeps drawing you in as a storyteller?
See, I am from here, so for me, it's the city I know best. and it's a city that I didn't always grow up in. Like I would be studying in different parts of the country and coming back to Mumbai. And I think when you leave a place and come back, you see the changes more evidently, and you realize what the city comes to mean to you in different ages of your life and different times. And for me, the city is full of contradiction, like any big city is, because Mumbai, I mean, in some ways, for a lot of women, it's a city which is a little bit easier to navigate, to negotiate, to work late, compared to many other parts of our country. And but it's also such an expensive city, and it's a city where, like, to live and to live comfortably, you need to do a lot of work, and you don't really get any time off. You spend like 1 hour in the train every day just to go anywhere. Then it rains, and the harbor line will stop, and so these things are part of our life. But it's also a city that brings us delight. So it was all these contradictions that I have a love-hate relationship with it. I can't live without it, but it's a city with a lot of problems also.
There's a beautiful line in the film I really want to quote when you talk about your love of the city. It's somebody in the film talking about the spirit of Mumbai and how that's just a tag for dealing with hardship. And I think one of the
Yeah.
characters says that you have to believe the illusion or else you'll go mad,
Yeah.
which is a wonderful way of phrasing it. Rana, I wanted to ask you about this idea of pan-India. It's this tag that has been, and in a lot of ways this film sort of challenges that, because pan-India is known as this almost distribution tag. It's referring to specific kinds of casting and packaging for blockbusters to be in different markets. And here you have a film about Malayali nurses in Bombay that flits between Malayalam and Hindi and Marathi and English in bits. So do you hope that it's also a film that's pan-India in spirit, not packaging. So do you hope that this is the kind of pan-India film that we get to see more of?
See, I think the word pan-India has been coined with the release of Bahubali. That's the first time a Telugu film was watched in different places, and we knew that one story can be told to the rest of the country. But then that word is just overused in funny ways now. But I think truly in spirit, I think All We Imagine is a film that is not dubbed in a certain regional language. It's not going language to language. It has a source of being in Bombay. For an audience who speaks Hindi, it's as much their film. For an audience who speaks Malayalam, it's as much theirs. For everybody else who connects with the idea of women in a workplace, of just living life the hard way and what you have to deal with in India, I think it just cuts that very beautifully. In terms of its release, I think it's probably bigger than all the pan-Indian films happening, because globally I don't think very few films get to release in as many countries as it does. And we just heard about the release in France. I don't think any Indian films has actually went out there and released in that size. But I think really India means everything, and I just feel like now is a time where boundaries have kind of blurred away, and everyone's accepting of one another much more than what we were earlier. If I say 15, 20 years ago when I first came to Bombay, no one knew where Hyderabad was, where Chennai was. You didn't know which city was what. They thought I spoke Tamil. People here used to call me, say, watch a Malayalam film and say, do you know what this means? But that was the awareness then, and then today it's very, very different. So I think it's time that we're growing to understand India better, and I think this pan-Indian moment is really coming of age right now, and I'm hoping with All We Imagine we have many more films like this and cinema like this becomes mainstream quickly.
We definitely hope so. And just speaking of Malayalam, while you said it's obviously not a language you speak, I'm very curious to know, considering maybe the majority of the film is in Malayalam, and obviously written script, you workshop with your truly wonderful actors. But what does it do to you as a filmmaker when you're directing in a language that you're not familiar with? I'm curious, does it make it easier for you to get lost in the performances? Does that barrier add any sort of mystical quality to the process?
Yeah, when I started doing this, I thought it would be a good idea.
Hello.
But then I realized how challenging it really is to make a film in a language you don't speak. But because the starting point was in the hospital and with the people I had met, I felt that it was the honest thing to do. It took 2 years to, with my co-writer Robin, to rework the dialogues in Malayalam. And so that was a long process, and we tried to keep the nuances of the dialects of the language as much true as possible, and then getting the actors on board, they also added a lot to that. So I think of it as a really collaborative film in that sense, where it's not like, you know, the actors really contributed a lot to how the lines should be and what is going through the characters' minds and which region they come from in Kerala. So all these things, I learned a lot basically while doing it, and I am the kind of person who loves process. So for me, every opportunity to learn is a wonderful one. So I think it was in that sense, it was really a experience for me to continuously grow as a filmmaker.
But just speaking of process, you've also, you have made non-fiction-esque films in the past. You talk a lot about how non-fiction really, the term you use is it liberated you as a filmmaker to approach a fiction film. What did you mean by that?
I mean, with non-fiction, there is, with fiction, there is a whole large team that comes with it, and there are a lot of people on the set. And with non-fiction, you can be a bit more just you, the camera person, and go into the streets and shoot. Now, I was struggling with how to make a Mumbai film. If I have to recreate Mumbai in a studio, I don't think I would be able to do it. So we took a lot of freedom with the kind of camera we would have. We could go into the city and shoot like documentary style, and that for me made it more give it that feeling of, let's say, Muhammad Ali Road or shooting on the station and things like this. I don't think I have the imagination to recreate that. So in that sense, it helped me a lot to have that non-fiction freedom, you know.
Like I said, the way you capture the city and you're telling the story of a city in the background, the characters in the background is beautiful. Rana, I have to ask you, I know you can't solve all the problems of the industry, but you are here, so I have to get your perspective. I wanted to talk about the uphill battle that indie films like ours have to face to get to this point. The tragedy is some of the finest films about India from Indian filmmakers over the last few years have to go abroad and get acclaim from Sundance or Cannes or the Oscars. For a lot of people who have to sort of sit up and take them seriously, for a lot of us, she was the Payal Kapadia before this film. So, how do we bridge that gap and sort of give that talent its due?
See, like you just mentioned the word pan-India before. See, unlike the rest of the world where one country has one industry and you go to one place to solve all cinema problems, India, you have 20 places to solve it. Each region is almost a country of its own.
Yeah.
And until a few years ago, no one even spoke the same language actually in terms of understanding how to bridge those gaps. Like, for example, Telugu films landed up here because of one or two channels deciding that they just need more content and they just dubbed out Telugu films in Hindi. And on that bedrock is where all the other Bahubalis and Ghazis sat from there on. So I think now is a time where we're somewhere sensing that there is this one industry where there is some cinema that will cut across India, doesn't matter where you make it. So I think it's in that early stage, though we're 100 years old in cinema, like regionally each region has its history. But really as a cinematic nation, probably this is year 4 or year 5 for us in that sense. So I think it is an uphill battle, but I think with filmmakers like Payal, I just hope she makes more films. She's taken a long time to make this. But I hope, it's consistency and creating a habit. And once it's a habit, then I think everything changes very quickly. If you know that, okay, every month there is a film of this nature that you can watch in a cinema close to you, I think that's going to become a habit. That will become education, that will become culture for you. You'll understand the world in a much better light than what you would have otherwise.
I do want to ask you about the release book, but first, I wanted your perspective on that as well, because so many gems like yours within the independent circuit, are co-productions with other countries. In your case, you have French producers who have really championed it. I'm curious to know why that is for so many of these wonderful independent films. So many documentaries in the last few years while we watched All That Breathes. They are international co-production. Is it because the ecosystem here doesn't enable production of films like this?
See, as independent filmmakers, there's a challenge at every step. Even if you manage to get funding from India completely, like for example, Natesh Hegde's film his first film, Pedro, was financed in India itself. But the next step is distribution. How do you put it out there and where does it get shown? And so independent filmmakers are always struggling with every step of the way. Like, to make the film, then to show the film, and to see, you know, how to make a sustainable life for it. So I think it's not, I mean, the co-productions are the ones that get to festivals, so they get printed in the news. But there are so many films that are made locally also, which maybe in the region they will get a release, which are more independent. But to get it all over the country, we don't always have that, and it goes to OTT. Like, so see, for example, Mahesh Narayanan's film Declaration. It's a great film, and the way we know it is because it came out on Netflix. But it should have had a theatrical release all over the country because it's a great film. And I feel that there are so many good films that there are there, and like now Reema Das has also made a new film, Village Rockstars 2. She's an amazing filmmaker, and we all should be watching these films.
And we all do hope that streaming. I want to talk to you on a more hopeful note about the distribution. You know, you said something very interesting in the interview. You said that there is an audience for these films. You can't apply the same formula you are. So what is the right approach to getting phenomenal films like this, the audience that we hope does exist and does want to watch them? How do you approach them?
See, like earlier we've done it in the regional world where I've done mostly in Telugu, so I can speak about that. Because it's only one state, okay, now it's 2 states of Telugu speaking people, but it's a shorter audience to reach. So multiple screenings in that space, just going focused helps. I think with All We Imagine, we'll also discover how to do this in India correctly.
Yeah.
See, because ultimately you want to hear about it much more. It's not going to have flashy trailers like how the other trailers are and just bang you and say, here you go, buy tickets now, book tickets now, and go. That excitement is not what the cinema is here to create. It's word of mouth. It's how you see. Today we have one Mami that's popular and maybe one festival in Goa. But if every state has its festival and there's a provision to show these films over a period of time, I think that's the right way to do it, where people hear about it way in advance before you actually get to cinema. So I think we'll keep evolving that strategy. I think with All We Imagine, we've first said that, okay, organically it's Malayalam, so let's do the Malayalam release first, get it out in Cochin, then move state by state, and now we're in Bombay because that's organically the second language that's in the film, and I think we'll go across the country, and I think the film will somewhere tell us, see, like the screening in Kerala, like we were very unsure what that means, we didn't know how to release it, but the second we just put it in that screen, in 2 minutes it closed up the screening, and then they suddenly called and said, can we add more screens? So you know there is an excitement for it. That means there is a definite audience for it. We just have to go and find it.
Yeah.
So I think that's and like I said, if you can find a way to create a habit, and all these fine people here are going to help us do that around from now on.
No, for questions in a second. While I want to end with you, you've said that the title of your film obviously alludes to hope and possibility. You've said it's a title you took from your mother's painting, which is fair. It's a wonderful title.
There's also the Malayali title,
What is that?
Prabhayaya Nindichadallam, which Prabha is the character in the film.
Yeah.
So Prabha also means light. So there is a double word play with that. So for our Malayali audiences.
So I wanted to ask you about hope. In this moment, you've had this insane journey. There is such an exciting road ahead. Whether it's in terms of the film, the release, the experience, what gives you hope?
This moment now, then we can release it. That's really, like, I think the nicest thing. And I feel that the cinema is still a space that I really enjoy going to, and I feel that, you know, that films should get a release at least in the cinema, even if they are independent films. We should find a way that you can go to the cinema and watch them. Maybe eventually they will come on the OTT, but just the act of going and sitting with strangers and watching a movie and crying in the darkness, that for me is cinema. And I hope that, you know, that it's we get more distribution for independent movies in the future.
Fingers crossed.
Hope for that.
I think we'll get them on mic. Sorry, can you just... Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. No, I was asking, are you going to be continuing with independent cinema, or are there other genres that you're going to explore? And what are your new projects, next projects?
See, I never say never. You never know. wow, where life takes you. And when you're an independent filmmaker, you try to take every opportunity to be able to make the film that you want to make. So I think that will always continue. The mode of getting there, we'll see. And hopefully it won't take this much time like last time.
It's a happy problem to have. You're still living the experience of this one already on film.
Yeah, but
Hi.
we have to think about that as filmmakers.
हाय पायल, आई एम नीतू सिंह फ्रॉम दैनिक भास्कर. सबसे पहले तो आपको बहुत सारी बधाई. कांस फिल्म फेस्टिवल में पहली फिल्म इतने साल बाद इतना अच्छा उसने प्रदर्शन किया, उसके लिए आपको पहले बधाई.
धन्यवाद.
सो मेरा ये क्वेश्चन है, मैं थोड़ी क्यूरियस भी हूँ जानने के लिए कि ऑल वी इमेजिन एज लाइट में किस चीज़ ने आपको बहुत इंस्पायर किया एक फीमेल आइडेंटिटी और अर्बन लाइफ को दुनिया के सामने लाने के लिए, ये मैं एक जानना चाहूँगी आपसे.
फिल्म इज़ बेसिकली अबाउट फ्रेंडशिप. और जो फिल्म की जो कैरेक्टर्स हैं उनके बीच जो एक बॉन्ड बनता है वो बहुत मुंबई स्पेसिफिक बॉन्ड है. जो हम अलग अलग स्टेट से यहाँ आते हैं और यहाँ पे अपना करियर बनाते हैं, तो हमारी फैमिली बन जाती है वो उन लोगों के साथ जिनके साथ हम रहते हैं. वी वुड नॉट हैव नॉर्मली मेट दोज पीपल, बट दे बिकम आवर फैमिली, एंड दैट इज़ one of the things that is very important to me in the film.
आगे आप और किस टॉपिक पे फिल्म बनाना चाहेंगे या आपने कुछ और सोचा है इसके बाद?
मुझे मुंबई को लेके बहुत ही इंटरेस्ट है और यही शहर पे और फिल्म बनानी है, तो आई थिंक और 2 फिल्म तो बनेगी मुंबई पर. हाँ बिल्कुल.
Hi, Payal. I'm Prashant from NDTV. So my question is कि
there you are.
Yeah, hi.
Sorry, this light.
yeah, not a problem. So राणा ने बोला है कि वो इस तरह की फिल्मों में इस तरह की फिल्में उन्होंने नहीं की हैं, इनका सिनेमा दूसरा है. So now are you planning to cast him in your kind of film, or is Rana ready to do a film like that?
That's the first thing I asked.
Yeah, if he's willing, then I would be very very happy.
And one more thing, Rana, आप उनको कोई ऐसी फिल्म देना चाहते हैं जैसी फिल्में आप करते हैं या कमर्शियल सिनेमा? Are you ready to do that, Payal?
Sir, our aim is to make sure this runs as well as the commercial cinema does, and then you'll start calling this commercial after this.
वो अच्छा होता ना.
So we're not going to see a Payal Kapadia mass movie anytime soon?
Arey, you never say never. Anything can become mass, as if it can. We hope for the best.
Hi Payal, this is Priyanka from Midday. Many congratulations for this terrific win at Cannes. I wanted to actually take it from where Suchin said about how so many of these independent films don't get released. And I think after your win, so many of the independent voices spoke up and said that there are immediate changes that are needed, in the landscape, whether it's from the government, kind of to resurrect NFDC, or to kind of issue grants, and for the industry to also kind of champion these independent voices. For you to be in the center and taken this journey and come so far, what do you feel are the desperate change that the independent filmmaking landscape in India needs?
We can talk a lot about the independent landscape in India and how much support we need, and that is true. But people keep saying 30 years in Cannes and this kind of thing. That's on them, man. Like, we have great films and they should have selected more. So,
do you think that something like a grant, that's something which happens in a lot of other countries, is also something that the government or we as a country should look at?
we always had grants. Like, until a few years ago, there were grants, and especially there was also distribution that these films would get, whether it was shown on Doordarshan or we could see films like that. So I think we need to have some way that people have access to funding, or at least if industries could meet each other, because to make independent films, it doesn't cost all that much. So if there is just a way to communicate with each other and find a way that films can be financed, no matter how big or small they are, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the more the films there are, the more diversity there is. It's just a thriving film industry, and we have it also.
Yeah, true. But I think, recently what also happened was that a lot of people felt that how All We Imagine as Light should have been India's entry for Oscars, should have been selected. I mean, it would have been a more appropriate, that's a majority voice speaking. How do you feel as a filmmaker? Were you also hoping for that? Did you feel hurt?
I mean, Lapata Lady is a great film, so I was just happy. Like it's a wonderful film. All of us saw it, we loved it. I love her previous film also, Kiran Rao. So I was just happy that it's selected and it's the film that's gonna go.
Hi, Akash here from. Rana, I have a question for you.
Right under the light.
Yes, on the right. Yeah. So, I wanted to know that isn't the kind of films that you've done earlier. So what convinced you to come on board for this project as a distributor?
So first, I think the first 10 minutes of the film, I was really blown. Blown with, first the performances of the actors. I was sitting, I remember I was watching the film with my wife actually, and I was just blown the fact, I was like, okay, this is a movie, this is not real. And I'm watching them perform. And after a point, you're just being cynical. You're like, okay, they'll make a mistake somewhere. And they just did. It was so phenomenal, and I was like, to me, it was like just cinema class, theater class, everything happening at once. I was just so happy to meet her, just happy to have this in our kitty, really. And I just feel if we are able to show this to more people, more filmmakers, there's a certain taste that we can create for our audience. I think that's really a victory for us. As I'm a fan of commercial cinema. I love movies. I love movies of all kinds, but this was very, very special. The first very moment I watched it. Like he said earlier, the first title sequence of this film has a few Mumbaikars speaking. I mean, it starts from there, and then the three ladies just blow you off after that.
Also, Payal, recently while Kiran Rao ma'am also told that, female filmmakers are not much properly, strongly represented in the, we can say that in the international film festivals also. So can we say that with this film, this kind of film, and also with filmmakers like you, the change has begun? Now more female filmmakers are coming up with their talent.
I think it is. I am part of those many female filmmakers whose films are now showing. So I think it's because of that movement that I am also part of it, not vice versa.
Thank you.
Hello, right at the back. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Adarsh from Bollywood Helpline. First of all, congratulations for the movie, and the title is also very unique. And my question is for Rana sir. Sir, if ever a documentary is made on you, and you are given a if you are given a chance to name that documentary, the title, so what title will you give it? Just like this movie has got a very unique title, what title will be for your documentary?
We will speak in 20 years from now. And I hope I'll achieve something proper, and we will have a documentary then.
But still, sir, if there's a title you want to give it, like 20 years later as well.
So I'm just trying to figure out the story of my life. I didn't yet set a title for it. My name is Rana Daggubati, and I think that's a good way to start it.
Thank you.
I think, okay, we'll have time for one more question.
Congratulations, Payal. Should I sit down? Sorry. Can you see me? Okay, sorry. So, you make a film, and the film goes out, and then people start calling the film Indian, not Indian enough. What is an Indian film? Because at some point, is it because it's made by an Indian, it's funded by an Indian, it's acted by Indians? Is there an Indian texture that people are drawn to, or are these just bureaucratic categories that we use for awards?
I mean, it's what is Indian is such a complex thing, no? Like there are so many identities within this country, and what is that one identity that you could say makes it Indian or not is a mystery to me. I don't know, but I mean, you have a film of say Ghotok, and more than half the country hasn't seen. So then, is that an Indian film? It's not, because so many people don't know it. So what makes it an Indian film? I think what the statement that you're referring to was a technical one, which had to do with what film gets submitted to the Oscars. And if the director is Indian, I think that makes it an Indian film.
I think with that, we will have to close it there.
Now that your film is gone to the Oscars from France, I just want to.
No, it's not gone.
It's
not gone from France. No.
Okay.
My bad. So are you planning to?
Just released there, yeah.
Are you planning to take it there? Camping Oscars ke liye?
See, it's going to release in America
Right.
on the 15th of November.
Yeah.
If you have friends, please tell them. we'll see, because the distribution will decide then, because once it releases, then they will
I
see
know
how it's
after
being.
all the जो ज़रूरी चीज़ें हैं उसके बाद they will decide.
हाँ,
there
मतलब
are
वो
few
देखेंगे
things
कि उनके लिए क्या अच्छा है, क्या लोगों को अच्छी लगी वहाँ पे, उस हिसाब से फिर we'll see. Ah, okay.
Watch it, it's amazing.
Yeah, please come to watch the film. I mean, even though the film is about Indian themes, I think it's also about big cities, and it's about like the mixed feelings we have as people who come to live in big cities, and what those cities have to offer us, and how they cause problems for us also. And that, I think, is a universal theme. And it's also a film about friendship amongst the women who come here. So that I hope that that resonates beyond our country's borders.
I think we will have to call it there. Congratulations on the insane journey of the film. Apart from the fact that we're all immensely proud, I think it's safe to say it's just getting started, and we look forward to everything the
Thank
journey
you.
has in store. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you all for
Thank you,
coming.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we're taking some pictures with you guys now. Yeah. Can we get the producers up as well for a picture? Your time to shine. Someone take that. Yeah, thank you.